grants in your municipality. So this is the agenda today. We're going to go through intro, grants 101, finding grants, meeting grant agencies, writing grants, and a Q&A. Now, our objective is going to be obviously to win you a grant. Again, just a quick background on me. Like I said at the beginning, I've had a diverse experience in grants, both 11 years of hardcore, grant writing in the trenches. So, and people ask what I do, and I teach I speak, but I also teach a grant writing course as well, an advanced grant writing course for people. So I'm going to start with this slide, and especially for the bottom third, but I think even the top third of the people who have high level of experience on this, is that grants can be confusing for a number of reasons. One is you see them in the news all the time. Sometimes, like I was researching different articles, and this was Trudeau announces first agreement with London under the housing fund. And the actual press release for the money was like 18 months earlier. So if you're alone saying, I hear there's money and where is it? And then there's delays, like welcome to grants, okay? Because this is the world you're living in. And then, there'll be announcements come out. And also, I just want to point this out that, like, look at the headline here. Industry Minister defends the battery plant subsidy plans. So it's also a bit, I don't know how to say it, but it can be well, I'm just going to say it bluntly. It can be controversial. People can have strong opinions. Like if you look at a Facebook post where they will list a grant, and then all the comments under it's like, what are we giving money for that for? Well, it's taxpayer money, right? So, you definitely don't feel a bit alone if you don't think that you're the only person that is a little bit confused or overwhelmed by grants. So the purpose I have is to build trust between business and governments. Why I teach things like this. I always say, and when I teach, like, be the expert in your space or be the trusted advisor to the grant agency that you're dealing with. Sometimes people come to me like, I want to win a grant. Well, it's like, remember, you're trying to solve a government problem. They have a program. You want to be someone that they can rely on, that you're dependable, that you're getting your reports on, that if they give money out to you, that you can get it back, like the basics. And I would encourage you, if you're taking notes today, is don't underestimate the importance of just getting the basics right. So after this talk, I'm going to help you improve how you find grants, meet grant agencies, and start winning grants. So hopefully I can give you some extra skills and tips on that as well. So this is the journey we're going to go on. We're going to start with Grants 101, and this is really for our new class. So I won't spend too much time, but a refresher for those of you with more experienced. Then we're going to go about finding grants. Again, this isn't going to be me talking. I'm going to give you some things to do. Meeting grant agencies. Sometimes people are new. They don't even realize, you can speak to these people, and then writing applications. And I would just encourage all of you to go in that flow right there. Like, follow that flow. If you get in the wrong order, if you start writing without talking to them or getting clarification, you can run into trouble. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to start with this quote on Grants 101. It's my favorite quote. You can see it on the screen here. And if you're driving or something, I'll just read it to you. But you can have everything you want in life, or you can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want. And that's what you're in, folks, in grants, okay? You have different levels of government with funds trying to hit their KPIs, and you have your projects. And the more you can align your grant applications to helping them get what they want, the more successful I think you're going to be in grant. At least that's been the case for me. So just keep that in mind. It's a very different mindset than saying, I want a grant. I want a grant. It's like, no, how can I help you? How can I, help you hit your numbers? So let's just go through a really quick grant fundamentals. And I know this is a municipal audience, so it sort of sounds, Dave, why are you doing this? But I've just learned if I skip over this, I could leave some of you behind, and I don't want to do that. So here, have a look at this slide right here. What are grants? Notice here, it's unusual, right? Like, they're often called support, fund, initiative, program, plan, service, stream, solution, partnership. Like, especially for you, 2/3 of the people that are new, if you're like Googling, like, wastewater grant or grant for playground or something, it can be very, like, the searches don't come up and it can be kind of confusing. So just be mindful for the the slide I showed you at the beginning around like the minister had to defend, we could sit here and debate for a while they do this, but I could throw it in the chat. Why do you think they call it anything but grant? I'm sure that you can see where I'm going with, like, they're not super clean. So it can be super confusing. So just be mindful of that. The reason I do this Grants 101, believe it or not, this was the last federal election. It looks like forever ago, but these were the leaders in the last federal election. Oftentimes I find, and I teach this Grants 101 because there's a grant fog. Grants always begin in election platforms. So I just want to show you something. This is a federal example, okay? So look at the Liberal platform. They have grants. And then even in the Conservative platform, like you can see that there's grants here. Look, they're going to invest $250 million to create a job training grant or training fund. Grants are just unusual, right? Because it's like you don't you always think conservatives and liberals hate each other, are always fighting, and you always think Republicans and Democrats, you turn on the news, are always fighting. But grants are a tool. In my course, I teach it a little bit different, where I talk about sticks, like, why were you not speeding today? You might have been, but why do you usually not speed? Because you might get a fine, right? But grants are this other tool that governments can use to help them achieve their election platform. And check this out. So this is just a recent mandate letter from the Premier. This is to the Minister of Agriculture. Now look at this. Just read that bottom slide for me, if you will. I know some of you might be listening to this, but it's just 5 lines. I'm just going to just read that. So you have, basically it's saying here, like, under your leadership, Minister of Ag, I expect you to work closely with your colleagues and, to deliver on our election forum commitments. And then it goes on to talk about their programs. So just keep that in mind. Okay, this is where grants are coming from. They're coming from election platform commitments. Once they get elected, they go to Edmonton or Ottawa. And then, of course, again, this is a pretty sophisticated audience, but, you have bureaucrats, government workers allocating the capital to, in this case, municipalities. Or you have this other entity, which I would call delivery agents. So you get into 2 different types of entity. Well, you get a provincial, or you could have delivery agents allocating this capital. And for today's purpose, everyone, I just want you to know, like, who you're talking to. If you, this is kind of fun talking to this audience, but if you think about elected officials running and going on election platforms, being held accountable, and then, people like yourself working in government, where you're responsible for, the taxpayer dollar and making sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that are giving out, just know who you're talking to. And then, but again, the other reason I mentioned this can be confusing, because some may be provincial, some may be federal, and then you get like the Green Municipal Fund. Look at this, $1.6 billion. Like, you're talking some serious money, but it's good for you to start to get to know, okay, who I'm speaking to. The other people I want to mention, just for the new folks, is the reason it can be a bit confusing, right? You've got local governments. Now, this is just local governments, obviously, such as yourself, giving out grants. But then you got provincial grants, and then you've got federal grants. If you're new, you're not used to this, you're probably seeing grants in the newspaper. Your organization might be giving out some grants. There might be grants coming from the province. There might be federal grants. There's these delivery agents that's giving out grants. Like, it's a bit overwhelming at the beginning, but with a little bit of skill. In actually this webinar series, like next in December, we're doing building your grant calendar. We're actually going to help you say, okay, what are your projects for the year? And we match those grants with that dollars, which is pretty awesome, I think. I just want you to know there's a lot of moving parts in grants. They have different names. They have, different levels of government. So just get comfortable, keep getting your skills up, and I'm sure you're going to do, you're going to do fine. Okay, now let's talk about finding grants. There were a lot of people in the poll that said, the call that said, I want to find grants. So my first point to you is this. Sometimes people think, all I need is a list of grants. It's the most common thing I get, you get, I want to find grants. But like, folks, look at this. This is where you submit the grant. So if you find money here, you still got a long ways to go before you get the grant in. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is, it's important to find grants, but you haven't scored the touchdown yet. You still got a way to go. So be careful. And in December, we're going to be helping you do that as well. We're going to do something now. most of the grants will flow in these sectors. And one of the reasons why I want you to see this is in your roles, you're probably educating people on grants too, like constituents, citizens coming through, talking about, hey, I want a grant, most of your money is going to be here. Your tier B, here's your municipalities are going to be getting a lot of grants too. But if you're like a barber shop, right, and there's your one small shop or a hairdresser salon or something, there's not a lot of grants for that space, right? I mean, you might get a summer student, but that's about it. So it's just good to know where you are in this space. Now, one of the things I want you to do is we're going to do an exercise right now. The Open Grant Database. How many of you are familiar with this? I want you to take this. Here it comes in the chat. Click this link in the chat. And I want you to open that up. So all federal grants that get, that you win, it's supposed to be over like 25 grand, but I think they're all on there, are listed online, and they're really good. They almost get up every quarter. So put your community in there and hit search. So this is Town of Devon. So you can see, so this is a really good way for you to start to get your head around like what types of grants are out there for finding grants. So you can see Town of Devon won over 100K from this fund in this department. And then I always think this was Town of Stony Plain won 300K for the public library. And over here, Peace River won Canadian Heritage Building Community through ours. Looks like they did a celebration. They won $36,000. It's pretty powerful if you spend some time in here, it's really interesting. And by the way, the province has one too. It's not as slick as a database, but it's still mighty fine. Now, a couple other search engines that you can look for, and I would take a picture of this, folks. Like the Municipal Affairs has a website. You can take a screenshot of this if you want or whatever. AgPal for the agricultural type grants are there. My website at albertabusinessgrants.ca has, and Jeff, if you could maybe put some of these in the chat, it'd be great. But there's, just go onto their website. It's like right there, it says search grants, and this pops up. I actually appreciate how simple that is. Like like most people get like Egg Finder gets really, really complex. They kept it simple. And then this is all free, by the way. You can search municipality, search Alberta, find grants, and a bunch of them show up. So there's a lot of free tools that we just showed you that you can use for finding grants. And that's awesome. At least I hope you think it is anyway. Then there's like the next step, and that is tracking these. I just about said bloody things. But, it's a challenge, right? Like it's, they're opening and closing competitions. So what you need to do is ABmunis has a newsletter. Sign up for the weekly newsletter. It's actually, Jeff, if you could throw that in the chat as well. It's at the bottom of the page. You can click subscribe to a newsletter at the bottom of the footer of ABmunis. That'll get you your weekly grants. And then on my site at albertabusinessgrants.ca, if you sign up at your email at the top of it, I publish a list of grants every Monday morning as well. So like that's 2 free resources coming at you of finding grants and then tracking grants. You haven't spent $1 doing this. So it's pretty cool. So I would encourage you to use those resources. So a couple tips for you before I leave. Grab low-hanging fruit. Like if you're new at this, like you'll notice a lot of people won summer student grants, especially I'm speaking to the people that just started. 2/3 of you're new to this. Start with one grant at a time, especially if you don't have a lot of project management experience or you got a full plate. Just start with one. A lot of grants are managing expectations, which I'm going to talk to in a minute. And, you can do really well. And keep mindful, you can win grants year after year. So always conduct yourself accordingly, right? I mean, you'll see the summer students, they win over and over again, and you can win some of these grants over. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, so this is the page. These are all grants for municipalities, by the way, for the rest of the year. These are all open grants coming up. So I want to show you something. So first of all, here's rule number 1. Okay, let's pick one. Affordable Housing Initiative Fund. So it's open. You'll click on that. What I want you to know here is, if there's a deadline or this is open, know about it before your boss or your council does. it's good for you to get the habit of, okay, I know what's coming. And you become proactive in grants. And this is like, again, a free resource for you that you can do that with. You can click on that. You see municipalities. Come down here. We're moving into this. This one's due February 14th. Look at this. Applicants can apply for a contribution. Capital Stream webinar, November 14th. So remember how I said find grants, meet grant agencies? There you go. For golden opportunity coming up, you can sign. Again, you're starting to get proactive, right? Rather than council coming in and, I mean, let's face it, you're in the emergency business, right? Like if there's an emergency, a bad accident at an intersection or something, they come to you and like, we got to get that road fixed. We got to get that internet, those lights up on that intersection or whatever it is. There can be a lot of pressure. And what you want to do is just develop this grant calendar looking forward. Say, okay, these are the grants that are coming. Is this the one we want to go after? And you'll get a real good skill. This one, I got two more I'm going to show you here and we'll move on. This one, if you click on it, the deadline is the 16th, but we missed the webinar. So you may have to go watch the recording of it. They don't have a recording of it. I just want you to know, you can still apply. You still got time. So, I always say you want 6 weeks at least before you get writing. Like writing these at the last minute can be a nightmare because you got to get letters of support oftentimes and attachments and stuff like that. And the last tip I want to leave you on this is in your space, and I could probably get a thumbs up from a lot of the veterans on here, but November 30th seems to be a big date for municipalities. Like a lot of grants seem to be, and I was kind of laughing to myself, and this is more for my own self, like as I develop project management skills and stuff, but like November comes every year, Dave. Like November is not going to be a surprise. So I say that to myself kind of half jokingly, but it's good for you to know, like, okay, what does 2024 look like? What does 2025? And I find people with like you veterans on here coming here with 5-year experience, like you've probably found you're getting better with grants each year, right? And for you, people with less experience, just know you'll get better next year. And it's hard, right? Council will be like, hey, we need this yesterday because they're dealing with reality, but with some training and grinding away at lunchtime on a Friday, you're getting to the next level. And I tip my hat to you for that. So things you need to know. Again, you may want to take a picture of this. Understand grant delivery agents, know your audience. Remember, grants are not like IKEA, right? You gotta read the instructions and they'll give you lots. Be prepared. Competitions open and close. So you've got to get a master grant application done, get your grant calendar built. Like you got to be proactive in grants or grants start running you. And some of you probably know what I'm talking about. Like, you want to be the person be like, hey, I need this from you. I need this from marketing. I need this from finance. Build that one beautiful home for all of that stuff. I got a checklist that I give in my course, but it's like, get all that in order so that when a deadline comes open and Sally or Bill or whoever is on holiday, it's not painful to get it out. Even things like your logos, get them done and hit a go no milestone after finding grants and ask yourself, is this worth it? Is this worth it for me to go down this road? Which is a bigger discussion outside of this. A couple best practices. Keep in mind, most grants fund future projects. They'll go back kind of to April 1st, sometimes with the government fiscal year, provincially and federally, that is. I want you to get thinking about 2024 in this presentation. You're looking now, like you saw the quarter ahead, but really start thinking about 2024. This planning is going to minimize surprises. And I say in business, in like government, surprises are usually bad. Like we don't like surprises. I mean, to most extent, right? And you can, by good planning and taking training like this, hopefully, you're going to find that you're going to be leading and, you'll get your applications in on time. You'll get awesome letters of support, stuff like that. And finally, this is for everyone, but in grants particularly, improve your say-do ratio. And your say-do ratio is the ratio of saying you're going to do something that you actually do. Because in grants, like you've got deadlines, there can't be any like blank space. So, and that's for the leaders, some of the CAOs and some of you seniors, like let's all, and myself included, right? And if you can't meet the deadline, this is really important. Just communicate in advance. Like it's like you're moving into a new space, it's a challenge. Just say, hey, listen, I know you need this by November 12th. I can't do it. We got a conference coming up, or we got something like this. And just develop that muscle, and you'll find yourself becoming someone that people really rely on and they can count on. And I'm speaking mainly for myself here too. Like, we want to be people, but it's real in grants, because there's a real deadline and real dollars on the line. Now let's wrap things up here. So we're going to talk about meeting grant agencies. For you rookies out there, I know I wish the veterans could speak right now, but remember, you can speak to these people. Sometimes websites are out of date. They're usually pretty good at email. Sometimes they'll even talk to you. But these are kind of the core questions. I would take a photo of this. Am I eligible? Funds still available this year? Are you still accepting applications? The deadline, how competitive? This kind of just good stuff to know. And this is the most important question. Do you have any advice? These people, most of the people that work at these organizations, especially, they're pros, and they can give you good tips. But, let's say you're from a smaller community, or you're out in a rural area, like, just good things to know. Like, can you tell me anything about my probability of winning or stuff like that? I find if you find you can have a good relationship, and it goes a long way. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call, the veterans, can relate to that. Now, I want to give you a few tips, and then we'll send you on your way. Again, I can't reiterate this enough, but understand grants are about them. I know you need grants for your problems, but if it's not a great fit in grants, it's usually a no. It's just, don't be very careful about trying to put a square through a round hole, or whatever that expression is. Okay. Like, it's about them. So when you're writing your grants, even read their annual report, read their strategy report, look at what they're funding in their press releases, and really tied to the minister's mandate letter. I mean, you get the mandate letter from the department, you start tying in. I mean, now you're like a graduate of my advanced grant writing class. Like, now you're on a new level. But that's where you want to be. And that's why I'm sharing that with you today. Okay. Now, project clarity. This is about managing expectations. And I have worked for elected officials for 4 years, and I tip my hat off to all you elected officials out there. I know the sacrifice you make, and it's hard, right? You're facing public scrutiny. You're going days and nights. For the staff who are on the call, just remember, like, it's tough, right? So you've got to get that plan. You've got to know what projects you're going to, let's say you got 4, 5, 6 projects, whatever the number is for you. Get the grants aligned with that. Take it to your meetings each time, council gets together. This is our plan. These are our grants. This is our status. So when new stuff's coming in, you can talk about, well, do we have the resources for it? If we do that, we're not going to do this. If we actually win the grant, do we have the bandwidth, the resources to execute on it? And I find money can be weird sometimes. Like, some people just see it and they want it. But I think it's our job as grant writers to, first of all, get ahead, really give good advice, factual advice. Hey, this is what we said we were going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what our budget says. We don't, and get that alignment. And I think it'll be fantastic for you. And it's hard in a moving place of the industry you're in, but I mean, that's why it's public service, right? All right. This here. So this is like, let's say it's a large grant. Total of 150 hours. Follow my screen here. It's 12 weeks. You can see there's information here, scope, grant agency meeting, go, and then look at this, go, no. And these are kind of things here. This is where most people make mistakes in grants. And for you rookies, it's great you're learning it now. For you veterans, you're welcome, because this is brutal and you know it. But this is the line here of, let's say, the project owner. And sometimes they'll give you the grant. They'll say, hey, Wendy, go write this grant. I'm out of here. Hands up, walk away. But what Wendy doesn't realize as a project owner, she still has to be involved at certain stages in this project. And then you can schedule and plan accordingly. If you get really good at this, you plan the whole grant, you schedule the whole grant right off the bat, right? So that is just, this is, like I say, this took me forever to figure out. But you know what? 20 years for you rookies out there that are getting this, you're like, I hope you like this, because it's gold. And this will help you kind of manage expectations. And this is just other tips I have down here at the bottom. Like when I write, momentum is key. Getting that master grant application built is really important. And with that, I'm going to, oh, by the way, this is just interesting. These are the most popular grants because I have a large grant ad. These are the most popular grants right now from municipalities. These in this order, because I've got a newsletter where I count clicks and I count the database. So those are, I don't know, just that was just interesting for you. I've been lecturing to you the whole time. So with that, next steps, I think we'll take some Q&A, some resources. I would encourage you. I've got a book on Amazon. We'll put in the chat. Sign up for the ABmunis newsletter. I teach an advanced grant writing course. We have a next webinar coming up with ABmunis on building your grant calendar, December 12th. Jeff's going to put that link for the registration in the chat. And I'll put my book in there too. You can get it on Amazon. And folks, that is the beginning of your grant journey.